seemed chaotic and random. Here was a way that I could become active in creating my own story and getting to know the many, many characters in my own internal dramas. And here was a way that I could be seeking and growing and knowing all at once. Young's ideas shifted my perspective radically in my later teenage years. I began to really understand and experience the miraculous phenomenon of synchronicity, like our Rushnek, on an incredibly regular basis, and it led me to some astounding insights about myself and the life that I was living. I began to evaluate people and ideas and myself in a very different light than I had been previously, and perhaps ironically, Young's scientific, if a little eccentric, theories brought me closer to a spiritual path and a faith in something bigger than myself in a way that nothing else had, because they, like Unitarianism, begged me to question and question again what I was seeing and experiencing in daily life. And, perhaps most importantly, I began to see that there was potential for meaning and purpose in everything. So, with these new tools of knowledge at my disposal, I began the incredible and daunting task of looking back and, once again, trying to make some sense of it all. Funnily enough, when I started to look back with the intention of making connections started to fall into place. I began to understand that maybe, just maybe, some of the things that I had been perceiving as obviously opposing and unharmonious, completely different ideas may, in fact, have one, okay, maybe even a few things in common with each other. A few years further down the road, I even began to realize that these similarities don't necessarily have to be present for everyone to get along, but that's a different story. Today's story is the Easter story. Today's story is how the seemingly completely different ideas of a cyclical, matriarchal, earth-centered celebration and a patriarchal, ideological, heaven-centered religious holiday might share in common in one possible bigger picture. It all begins with an egg, or a chicken, to avoid the risk of leaving out any schools of thought. In that egg, out of that one small, self-contained package of potential, universes that may become embodied in a baby chicken, or a slithering reptile, or a complex and incredible human child. Take a look at the egg you're holding, if you're holding an egg. If you're not, imagine you're holding an egg and look into your hands anyway. Within that egg in your hands is a new universe. Even Christ himself theoretically came from an egg of divine intention without an earthly male seeding at that. Even before I had taken an interest in Young, the story of Christ's birth screamed metaphor to me. The piece that seems too often to get overlooked, though, is Mary's part in the birth of Christ. I realize that it isn't Christmas today, but can you imagine being pregnant and knowing, without a doubt, that the child within you is completely sacred and will change the face of humanity forever, for better or for worse? It's an incredibly strong image. But back to that egg. There is no universe, that we know of anyways, that contains birth without death. If you were to accidentally drop your egg on the ground, the potential life within it would be extinguished instantly, yes? That is the power of the mother archetype. She is the bringer of life and the bringer of death. There is no birth without a death on some level, or vice versa, and this theme is also very much evident in the resurrection. Yes, it points to a heavenly realm beyond our earthly abode, but it also points to an inner, cyclical, psychological aspect of life that is the rebirth of ourselves throughout our lifetimes, having rested within the tomb of earth to rise again with the flowers and grasses and new baby chickens. There is a definite sense of Christ having been mothered within the earth, of being within that deep place that we go to in our unconscious to regroup before our souls can even begin to think of emerging, into a space of light again after a long, cold, dark winter. Remember, Christ was born to wed the Heavenly Father and the earthly Mother. Again, the latter part of that sentence has been forgotten or ignored by mainstream Christianity for many centuries, but the symbolism is pretty evident within the structure of the myth. After that, all of that having been said, I wanted to use this Easter service as an opportunity to bring things a bit back down to earth. Although the traditional Easter services brought me so much wonder as a child, as I've grown, I've learned the importance of seeking to ground the mysticism and mythology into something that's real. Herein lies the purpose of ritual. That is, bringing to a physical reality the actions which help us to identify those big, awe-inspiring, universal images within our own psyches. The mother archetype is a part of ourselves that nourishes and grounds and tells our fragile, fragile egos that it's safe to come out of hibernation and embrace the new life that is appearing all around us. And yes, winter is a death of sorts, so the image of a resurrection is actually very fitting to our tired and worn souls working to rise up and feel joyful and alive again. I know I, for one, had an incredibly difficult winter, but having the warm sun on my face, finally this week, and seeing the tulips blossoming and the robins returning, hopefully really soon. I wrote this in February. I was feeling really hopeful. Oh, don't those little signs make all the difference in how your energy moves within you? Can't you just feel yourself coming back to life as the snow melts and you can hear it dripping and gurgling as it thaws? The softness of new flower petals and baby birds and pussy willow buds. Doesn't that new warmth and softness of nature remind you of being a small child and feeling completely safe under your mother's watchful gaze? As we grow, we need to learn how to be that feeling of security of our own esteem, and that is no small task. I know it's one that I'm constantly challenged by, but doesn't spring just make it feel a little bit less daunting? And isn't it that feeling that the myth of resurrection is striving to create? That comfort that things will continue in one form or another? Of course they'll be transformed. Life is a continuous transformation. I don't personally believe in Christian heaven, but I don't need to believe that to see that idea reflected in everyday life. I'm not the same person I was a year ago. Are you? This winter has transformed me in ways I would never have dreamed. Hopefully one step closer to some sort of psychic wholeness, but of course even that is a mystery. As a means of embracing all of these big ideas and motifs, as well as a way of coming to appreciate spring's little miracles, I'd like to share a simple ritual with all of you this morning. I have to admit, even though I had this service in the back of my mind for quite some time, and I had really wanted to create this ritualistic piece to bring everything together that I had in my head, I was having difficulty coming up with an overarching idea that could effectively achieve what I was mulling over. And then, on a fine morning at the beginning of this month, I put out this need for an egg ritual to my roommate, who promptly fired off a perfectly fitting idea for me to work around. So we have Laura to thank for inspiring our meditation today. To start, I'd like you all to close your eyes and take a deep breath in, just bringing your attention to your body. Relax your legs and feet. Release the tension in your back and your shoulders. And then exhale, allowing your breath to move out into the places that you hold tension and help it flow out. On the next inhalation, become aware of the egg that you may or may not have in your hands. Feel its firm shell and visualize its red exterior within your mind's eye. As you let this breath go, I want you to project an image of that red shell around your own body, as if you were inside this egg that you're holding in your hands. It's a safe place for you to be, dark and warm and comfortable. Just let yourself stay in this space for a few breaths, being as still as you can, save for the inhalation and exhalation and inhalation and exhalation. With this next inhalation, you can feel nourishment and air seeping into you through your shell. As you exhale, the space around you is warmed by your breath. Stay with this sensation for a few more breaths, really experiencing the depth of the security and the feeling that you are not yet born, and so are a being of pure potential, safe to become anything. Exhalations warm the interior of your egg. You start to become just uncomfortable enough to notice the urge to stretch out your limbs. Do so, and feel yourself touch the boundaries of the shell which encompass you. Move your legs, first a little, and a bit more, and your fingertips, exploring the smooth surface that is surrounding you. You still feel completely safe, but as you contact this membrane, you begin to realize that it may be more beyond it to explore. Remain in awareness of your breath, but begin to move to break free of what has become a comfortable confinement. Move in whatever way you feel you need to in order to emerge from your egg, allowing yourself the safety and non-judging space that this movement requires. Stay with this movement until you can see the shell breaking in your mind's eye, and bright, warm light flowing into your being as you are birthed from that space. Once you have come to this place in your journey, slowly open your eyes and bring them to a soft focus on the egg in your hands, really holding on to the experience of being within it. I'm going to ask you to come back to this space, take a few deep breaths to get centered, and then allow your thoughts to rest upon what part of yourself it was that emerged from that egg. Was it you, as you are, comfortable inside yourself? Or was there some piece that was fighting to break free and touch the light? Play with this thought for a moment, and then, when you feel ready, there's a basket in the middle of the room with markers in it. And I want you to get up, take your egg over, and either draw one image or write one word of what emerged from that egg. Keep your egg once you've written on it, and I'll explain the last piece of the ritual once everyone's returned to their seats. However, these eggs are hard-boiled, and some of them cracked last night, so you should probably only keep them for a day or two. That's new. We weren't aware that would happen. May the new life of spring and the promise of transformation guide you throughout the year. Blessed be.